Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Help Is Here podcast, brought to you by the Beyond Compulsion Academy. Today I'm going to be talking about the real reason why you keep on going back to porn. If you're listening to this and you are struggling with a porn addiction, I'm going to be sharing today a few ways in which you're probably doing things which is actually leading to you staying stuck in this cycle where you're trying to stop the behaviour, you're like, okay, let's do it now, I'm never going to do this thing again. You maybe go on another streak, like reset accounts or whatever, and you're like, okay, that was the last time, this is it now. And then what happens is, some days or some weeks, maybe some months go by, and you go back and engage in the behaviour again. You keep on going back to this thing that you want to stop so badly, you want to stop doing this thing, and then you end up relapsing once again. I was stuck in that exact cycle for 10 years. So between the ages of it was probably 9 years. Between the ages of 16 and 25, or maybe 26, I can't really remember. But I was stuck in that cycle for a long time, basically, 9 or 10 years, right? Just going round and around and around. I'd have this app on my phone where I'd reset my counter, start the streak again, I'd get a journal out, I'd be writing about okay, why did I relapse? I relapsed because I was tired, I relapsed because I was lonely, oh, it's because I didn't do these habits here, oh, it's because I didn't spend enough time with friends or family, and I'd start again, I'd go on another streak, and then I'd just eventually relapse again, and it got really exhausting, and it always felt like there was these kind of two parts to me, the part of me which was quite rational, sort of wanting to work on business, wanting to succeed in life, wanting to get into good physical shape and, connect with friends and family and have a good life. And then this other part where no matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried, I'd end up getting out of control, relapsing, back in the porn, back with all this desire, feeling a lot of shame, lacking integrity, feeling annoyed with myself, feeling frustrated, feeling weak, feeling tired, feeling very lethargic and drained, and then ending up binging on porn, maybe eating excessive amounts of food, scrolling compulsively, maybe watching a lot of Netflix and just kind of being in a really, really bad mental state. So why was I in that cycle for 9 or 10 years? Why was I so trapped in this place that I just felt like I couldn't get out, and I'd be relying on the motivation and then always going back to the same place. And what I did, and if you're listening to this, there's a good chance you've done the same thing. What I did is I would distract myself from the desire. I would distract myself from this problem by really focusing on self-improvement. So, I'd get into meditation, get into going to the gym, get into working on other habits in my life, trying to eat healthy foods, writing down to-do lists in a journal every day and doing all these self-improvement things, watching a lot of self-improvement content, listening to podcasts, reading different self-improvement books. I would do that. And then another thing I would do is I would really try and work on my inner self, maybe try and delve into trauma, try and solve what happened in my childhood, try and develop a better relationship with these different sort of younger child parts of me, and even went to therapy, right? So I'll do all these different things, and overall it was quite a holistic approach to trying to solve a porn addiction. And I'd keep on growing personally, I'd keep on developing overall in these other areas of life, but then I'd end up relapsing again. And so it was really confusing. And, obviously the thought would keep coming up, what is wrong with me? How do I keep on ending up in the same place? What the hell? I'm it felt like there was just this cognitive dissonance, because part of me would be so into improving myself and growth and developing. And then this other part of me would keep on engaging in this completely life-destroying way where I just feel so bad afterwards. So it was really tough, because it's this conflict. Part of me really wanted to stop engaging in the behaviour, and then another part of me, and this was the key thing which I didn't really understand at the time, but a part of me did want to engage in that compulsive behaviour. And here's the thing. Most people, what they do is they only really focus on that I want to stop, and that's how they get into self-improvement, maybe trying to deal with trauma, and they try and grow in all these ways because they want to stop engaging in the compulsive behaviour. But what they don't do, and this was my mistake for 9 or 10 years, is they don't focus on the part of their mind that wants to engage in the compulsive behaviour. And the massive misconception, which most people have, is that if they keep on growing and they improve their life in all these different ways, this desire over here is going to change. But that desire doesn't change until you've dealt with that desire extremely directly, until you've really faced it head on and, you actually acknowledge it and you get into that neural pathway of compulsive desire. So you're going, okay, yeah, like right now in this moment, there's this thing that I want to do, and you're accepting that, acknowledging it. And then you think through that whole choice, and you think through, the consequences or the benefits of choosing the temporary discomfort in that moment. Now, until you've actually faced that desire, right, and you've gone through these urges, your brain's basically going to stay the same, because imagine like a jigsaw and you've got all these different pieces, and like you might have like 99 out of 100 pieces in place. That could be like the self-improvement area of your life. But if you've still got this one jigsaw piece out of place, the jigsaw's never going to be complete. And that one jigsaw piece out of place is basically that part of your mind that wants to engage in compulsive desire. It's like if you've not actually managed to put that sort of piece of the puzzle together, you're going to continue to have a incomplete jigsaw. Like you're not going to be able to have solved this problem, because it's getting that final piece in place. Like it's managing to actually deal with the compulsive desire directly, understanding that part of your mind. That is the way to actually have the complete puzzle, like to solve this whole problem entirely. It's solving the problem of dealing with the desire. Now, just to put this into an example, which is probably going to make a little bit more sense. Imagine, you're going into your self-improvement world, so like you're journaling every day, you're hitting the gym, you're socialising, you're meditating, you're eating well, you're getting on top of your work, you're being productive. And then it hits like 5 o'clock, you're a bit exhausted, you're tired, you go back to your apartment, you're laying down on the sofa, and you decide to scroll for a bit. It's like, okay, well, in that exact moment, what are you doing? Like basically, like how do you deal with that part of your mind? How do you deal with that desire? Or it's like 3 a.m. and you're in a hotel on like a business trip with work, and you just suddenly out of nowhere you have this really strong desire to watch porn. Like in that moment, what are you doing? And it's like that is the problem to solve. And so the reason you watch porn, the reason that you keep on going back to it despite telling yourself you're going to stop, it isn't because of all this random sort of self-improvement stuff. It's not to do with the fact that maybe you are lonely, maybe you're stressed, maybe your work's really hard and you're under a lot of pressure right now. Maybe finances aren't so great. Maybe you're sort of finding it really hard to connect with people around you. Maybe you have a very busy mind and you're feeling distracted a lot of the time. Maybe you did go through some really horrible stuff and you were a victim of some abuse in childhood. But none of those things are ever going to be the reason that you keep on going back to porn. The only reason people keep on going back to porn and they stay stuck in this cycle is simply because when you act on that desire, so that desire at 3 a.m. in the hotel room, or that desire at 5 o'clock when you're laying down after a hard day's work, when you act on that desire, you keep on strengthening and wiring your neural pathways to go from wanting to engage in this behaviour to going ahead and actually acting on that desire. And so what happens is people relapse, and then they tell themselves, oh, like, that was the last time, or, maybe that's just like part of recovery, or, oh, slip-ups happen, it was just like automatic. So these are the rationalizations people will say. But the truth is, that relapse is the thing that's going to keep you stuck in the cycle, because that is exactly what leads to those neural pathways staying in that sort of cycle of wanting and then acting on the desire and just going round and round and round. It's strengthening those addicted neural pathways. And the only way to solve this problem is to learn how to deal with that compulsive desire in a very rational way, thinking it through, dealing with it, choosing a bit of temporary discomfort, going like really into it and through it and weighing it up as a choice and seeing it for what it is and changing that neural pathway. And then if you do this repeatedly, every time you have the desire, you think it through rationally over and over and over and over, you'll get to the other side and you'll look back and you'll realize like all the self-improvement, all the meditation, or like delving into your trauma, all of that stuff was never really going to help you, because it didn't actually give you that ability, that skill, that training required to solve this problem head on in a very direct, effective, rational way, where all we're doing is we're laser focused on how do we deal with that part of the mind that wants to engage in the compulsive behavior, acknowledging the desire without any shame, without any judgment, thinking it through in a rational way, making choices, and then changing the neural pathways correctly. Hopefully that makes some sense. This has really come from my experience with this problem. What I see a lot of people do is feel a lot of shame, feel a lot of like self-hatred, a lot of blame that they keep on relapsing, but they're not really getting the point that the reason they keep relapsing is because every time they've relapsed in the past, it's continue to strengthen those addictive neural pathways, which is what creates the desire to engage in that behaviour again. It is not to do with all these different random emotional things or who you deeply are. It's just the fact that you engage in a behaviour once, that is the thing that leads to you wanting to engage in that behaviour again. And until you're, really, really trained, until you know exactly how to deal with that desire, chances are you're going to stay stuck in that cycle for a long, long time. If you'd like to learn more about the Beyond Compulsion method, if you'd like to get the training to actually solve this problem very directly, check out the links in the description to learn a bit more. Cheers for listening, and we'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.